So, hello and welcome, guys, to another cybersecurity Q&A live. Hopefully, another great evening with us, talking all things cybersecurity. So, as always, drop your questions in the chat, and we'll hopefully try and answer all of your questions. Spend a good hour. So, hello and welcome, guys, to another cybersecurity. So let's see how many people we're gonna get, and we are live. So just making sure everything's working on all platforms. Hey, Redden. Yeah, I just got a spare hour, so I thought I'm gonna jump in and chat with you guys. Oh, that's great to hear. Yeah, good to see that you passed your Net Plus. Good stuff, Redden. Good to hear, me. You know, all the hard work paid off. So, great stuff. On to the Security Plus, I assume, now. It depends. I'll say you can probably manage a bit of both. You know, because Security Plus obviously, you know, covers the ATS and covers the job spec requirement, but obviously you need skills. So I would probably split your time, you know, that you have 50-50 between doing doing Security Plus and doing Home Labs. So you can kind of, you know, do a bit of both. I can imagine, yeah. Yeah, you know, life never stops. Yeah, babies coming and things like that. But you know, once you've done Network Plus, you obviously there's a bit of a carryover into Security Plus, and you know, it depends. No, Shukran, you're not the only one watching. Maybe you're the only one on YouTube, but there's plenty of people on different other platforms. So we're streaming at 5 different platforms. So yeah, there's lots of people here. But yeah, you know, 5 weeks. I think you know you can hopefully manage to do Security Plus in 5 weeks, Redden. So I don't see why not. But as you say, if the timing's tight, then yeah, focus on probably Security Plus and do the home labs after the babies come. Yeah, I know. Hey, Vanny. Yeah, good to see you. Yeah, see what you can do, Redden. You know, I did kind of similar thing. You know, when I was transitioning into cybersecurity, I was you know still working full time. You know, still need to pay the bills. So yeah, I kind of tried to manage as much as I could. You know, I used to work 4 on 4 off, so that kind of helped me. So I could you know focus on my days off on study. But you know, try to cram in any way I could. You know, that's why things like you know for me, watching Security Plus videos on the go in an iPad and stuff like that really helped me. Shukra says, is cybersecurity math related or math intense? No, you don't really need math in cybersecurity, Shukra. The only time you do kind of do any math is do a bit of networking and kind of calculating subnet masks and things like that. But yeah, you don't need much maths. Yeah, I can only imagine. You know, going into these exams, it's kind of tough. Yeah, Venny, I'm from Lithuania, but I live in UK for the last 17 years. Yeah, yeah. You know, Brendan, I think you know doing the practice exams is the really good stuff. You know, that really kind of you can gauge your preparedness and how far you are away from the real deal. I have no experience on the matter, but I studied cybersecurity. Should I switch to something else? Well, it depends. You know, Ignix. Depends what your passion is. You know, I always say something more entry friendly. You know, it depends. You know, I always say to people, I think sometimes people come to cybersecurity for the wrong reasons. You know, they dream of high paying salary and things like that. And yeah, if cybersecurity is your passion and you really, want to pursue it, there is ways to getting into it. So, you shouldn't retract, because you can find ways in it, and that's why I've been talking about. Actually, I need to post another video that you know it's tough getting into cybersecurity, but there are ways around it. You need to build skills. You need to be understanding where to go and what to do, to get the job in there. Yeah, definitely. I definitely I say if you're a beginner, don't choose pen testing, because pen testing is a difficult route into cybersecurity. So yeah, what's the issue, Star? Bro, I'm struggling to get internship in red team pen testing. Sadie, this it's hard to give you advice, but I always say, it's nearly impossible to get a pen testing job from the beginner. That's why I always say people find different routes in. Pen testing is not an entry level job, and that's why loads of people are, they seem or they want to think that pen testing is a sexy way into cybersecurity, but it's really not an entry level job, and it's hard to find an entry level role in that space. So I would focus into something else, and then if pen testing is the goal, then you can switch into pen testing. Fundamental that you must learn to be a SOC analyst. Well, start with, obviously, depending where your current knowledge is, you have to start with things like hardware, operating systems. Cover the CompTIA A plus material. Then go into networking. You need to learn networking and be kind of comfortable to understand how the networking works, and then work up to Security Plus, and then build a home lab. So try to mimic a SOC in your home lab and build skills. Vulnerability management, security incident and event management, endpoint detection and response. There's a good video I put in. Yeah, but Ignis, that's why I always say, yes, it's the salary is good. Yeah, everyone comes for a sexy salary, but the thing is, if you're not happy and the sexy salary is not gonna work, you need to be able. You need to be passionate about it. You need to be continuously learning. Cybersecurity never stops, so you need to be comfortable and passionate about learning and continuously evolving, because you're gonna get left behind very quickly. Happy holidays, Scorpion. Um, let me see. I want to start with C. Any advice? What, C as in programming language, or start with cybersecurity? I'm not sure what the question is. How good do you think the boot camps are? It really depends on the boot camp. I think, there are good ones and there are bad ones. Because the problem is, with boot camps, is most of them are just, gives you a bunch of certificates and just spits you out on the other end. Just having, 4 or 5 certificates doesn't necessarily guarantee you're going to get a job, because there's very rarely boot camps that actually teach you skills and hands-on experience to be able, or to be prepared to land your first ever cybersecurity job. And that's where, that's where the hard part is. Happy holidays, happy holidays. Should IT help desk job help to get into cybersecurity? Yes, definitely, Sadie. I think sometimes people, get detracted, or they are struggling to land cybersecurity job, and they sometimes, a step back to go forward is a good step. And, going into help desk is definitely going to help. He says, which is better, SIEM or SOAR? There is no better. They do different things. So SIEM is obviously security incident and event management platform, is essentially where what you work in your SOC. SOAR is essentially an automated response, where SOAR you use kind of AI or machine learning to automate some of the tasks in the SIEM. So really one comes without the other. What else was there? Good stuff, Scorpion. It looks like everyone came today prepared. I saw Reddit Pass Network Plus, UPass Security Plus. So Good to hear. Great stuff, guys. It's always glad to see people passing certs and improving their career, but potentially and potentially improving their chances to getting a better job. Green badge. I'm watching loads of YouTube. Yeah, exactly. YouTube is a great source for knowledge and stuff, especially because it's free. I always say for example, learning networking. Network Chuck is a great channel. There are some other bits and bobs. You got Professor Messer, posting some of the stuff on his CompTIA courses. So you don't necessarily always need to spend money. Obviously, exams, yes, but you can learn loads of stuff, like that, just on YouTube. Pentester certified CH. I come from Madagascar. I want to get a job remotely. Any advice? Uh, well, you just have to keep searching and applying. But pentester. You're not necessarily a pentester just because you got CH. Pentester. You need a lot more skills. And I always say CH is not the great cert for pentester. Yeah, Danny, if you want to connect on LinkedIn, you'll find my, there's a link on my bio to my LinkedIn. So just drop me a connection. Yeah. He. Yeah, just go again. Find my YouTube channel again. There's a description in my bio. There's a lab. There's a YouTube video in my on my YouTube how to build the lab to become a SOC analyst essentially. I'm learning Python, but I think I'm jump ahead too much. Hi, Hackrowd. Yeah, because essentially, Python depends what you've done before Green Badger, but learning Python is really kind of advanced part of cybersecurity. Python is something where you kind of that goes into kind of security engineering automation or pen testing. If you're just starting out, you don't necessarily need to start on your Python route. Alvaro says, why are you wearing the same t-shirt I'm wearing today? I don't know. I just picked one that was on the top. You obviously know, Alvaro, what it is. So I guess the guess in the chat is to guess what cybersecurity company this is, the t-shirt I'm wearing. Let's see how guys are. Those who are starting out probably might not know, but those who have been in cybersecurity should know by now what this is. So we'll see if anyone can guess. Yeah, exactly, Scorpion. I think sometimes people they've done EJPT and think oh, straight away I'm going to become a pen tester. So it's not that easy. And even with those certs, you have to be pretty good and advanced because, as I always say, pen testing is not an entry level route, and it's really hard to land that first kind of elusive role even after you've done the certs. So yeah, it's not easy. Yeah, extra points if they can announce it properly. We'll see. We'll see if any guesses will come in, just to show the sign again. But hopefully, guys will start frantically googling. But yeah, pen testing, yeah, definitely can be fun, and as you say, beautiful, Scorpion. I think it also depends where you end up working, because I think there is a very different career route when you're doing pen testing for an MSSP, or for working for a pen testing company, versus working pen testing, for internal company. Because I think you can play around and do a bit more fun, and especially kind of pen testing matched with red teaming. Because if you're working just for a pen testing company, you are normally doing pen testing to very small scope, and you just become kind of, I guess, disengaged and just playing with documentation. So yeah. It depends, Heis, as I say, but it's pen testing is really tough to start out and gain a first job, and Scorpion can probably allude to that. I think Scorpion mentioned before how long it took him to get into pen testing. So it's not an easy for starting out. Usually, after how long in SOC you will be able to switch to pen testing? It really depends, Redden. You might be lucky to switch internally for an organization that has already a red team or pen testing team, but it's all about how quickly you can gain a couple of certs, as kind of um, as Scorpion mentioned, stuff like ECPPT and OSCP. How long is going to take you to get them? How long is going to take you to build the skills and become fairly knowledgeable on things like Nmap, all the Kali Linux tools, Metasploit, Burp Suite. Learn how to uncover gaps and become kind of fairly knowledgeable of breaking down systems. So it really depends, but I would say being realistic, anywhere from I would say a year and a half to 2 years, you could definitely go. Yeah, junior pen testing is probably the most brutal job market, flooded with countless people who aren't qualified. Yeah, exactly. It's really, it's really easy, and I think people get really distracted kind of, or disengaged, because it's tough out there. Everyone's seen Mr. Robot and hacking movies, and I think oh, that's sexy, that's really interesting, and I'm just gonna go down that route, but it's not easy. Yeah, exactly. Scorpion says years it took him. um yeah, that's why you have to get advanced. Yep. I'm on my Cisco Net Academy course now, networking part. Cool, good stuff. After getting AZ500 from Microsoft, what else do you recommend me? Also, because it depends what you want to do. I assume, obviously, because you've done AZ500, you want to get into cloud security engineering. So if that's your goal, because as I say, it all depends on what's your goal. But if I'm just guessing, say if that's your goal, then I would get AWS security specialty as well, just to kind of pair the two. I would explore doing something like Terraform certificate to learn how to do all the AZ stuff in the infrastructure as code programming language. And then I'll just practice labs. I think I've just looked the other day. There is AWS have some great um, project labs and stuff like that where you can play around and actually learn skills. I'll probably gonna do maybe next week some videos about just, for example, simulating ransomware attack, how to use backups and how to restore from backups, how to restore from, when backups are potentially, being compromised with ransomware and things like that. So there's some good stuff in there. Mm. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, FTD, the long name. Yeah, I think people sometimes think you just get one cert and you're gonna land the cybersecurity job, but it's the market is, especially at the entry level, is getting tougher and tougher. But there are ways around it. I think just people obviously don't really know how to go about it. The non-boring route and keep you on your toes and not just documenting. I think renting cybersecurity engineering is the one that I really, it's been really exciting for me when I've done it a couple of years ago. So, cloud security engineering, especially, I think is really interesting, and you can learn quite a lot in that space and route. So that's what I've done before, and I really loved it. So I think that's the way. Sasha says, "Why no viewers?" I don't know why no viewers. I think people don't love me on YouTube. I get more viewers on TikTok. So I'm streaming through a number of platforms, Sahas. So we'll see. Is the Ace and Nitro V15 2023 good for that job? I don't really know the specs of that. I assume is it Dark Angel? As long as you go more than 16 gigs of RAM or 32 gigs of RAM ideally, but 16 might do it, but 32 gigs of RAM is the ideal sort of point. I remember now, Green Badge. I was London taxi driver. I'm 54. Do you think people are too? Yeah, I think so. I don't see why not. Obviously, sometimes there's age can be a bit of a barrier, but there's no reason why not. If you got the skills, if you got one or two certs, you developed, you understand, and you follow some of these. I got plenty of YouTube videos, about tactics and techniques, how to differentiate yourself. Not just get a cert. You need to blog. You need to shout and show the world how are you developing yourself, how are you building projects and learning, interesting part. When once you do that, you can definitely get a job. What do I think of Dark Trace? I don't want to swear here, Salam, but I don't really don't like Dark Trace. Dark Trace is nobody really in cybersecurity likes Dark Trace. Dark Trace does some crappy stuff the way they market, and I don't think they got really good products. So I'm not really a fan of Dark Trace, and I would never buy in my company Dark Trace. Yeah, exactly, Scorpion. Yeah, and networking is a good foundation for pen testing. Would you reckon is doable as business computing ongoing degree later on specialize on data security management? Diego, anything is possible as long as you persevere, as long as you build skills and acquire knowledge and gain hands-on skills, not just certificates or degree. Anything is possible nowadays. You just need to be able to learn a few things, and you need to differentiate yourself and show and stand up from the crowd. Anything's possible. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, age discrimination is real, but yeah, it's definitely possible. Obviously, I'm not 54, but I started myself. I was 30. I was not a spring chicken, but you know, I know plenty of people who started their cybersecurity careers in their 40s. So, do you think Windows 10 laptop is good for training? Yeah, of course. Any laptop is good for training. Any computer is good for training. Any Windows computer. As long as the main thing is, if you want to build labs and use virtualization, the only limiting factor might be is RAM. So you need a bit more RAM, because if you want to build a number of virtual machines and connect them in a network, it can be quite RAM intensive. But other than that, yeah, of course, it's perfect. Is it advisable to get your certs from university for you to work in cybersecurity? No. I always say, I studied in cybersecurity without a university degree, and I don't think you necessarily need a cybersecurity degree to go, into cybersecurity. Hamaris, would you advise on how to propose cybersecurity to startups? Well, one of the things how you need to propose that is you need to tie into business goals. How what cybersecurity will help and how it's going to deliver to their goals, whether it's framing as compliance. So, for example, cybersecurity can help companies acquire ISO 27001, SOC 2, which leads to customer trust and getting more clients. Meeting regulatory requirements prevents fines, and obviously preventing data breaches and cybersecurity risks. So, sometimes is a good starting point is to offer free assessments to understand where the gaps are, and then obviously then you can showcase and quantify the gaps in what would happen if these gaps go unpatched, and what that would cost potentially business in risk, and then you can build a mitigation plan, and that's how you do that. uh, oh, you missed the answer. Right? I think I said cloud security engineering for me personally, because I worked a long time in cloud security engineering. So for me, that was the best role that I've done over the years. What else was there? Did outsourcing has killed IT? Well, outsourcing always been around. Most of people try to find cheaper labor, and I think it's not only outsourcing. I think the business leaders who are trying to get quality on the cheap are the ones who are killing this industry. But I think there's still some great stuff around. So yeah, I don't think it's kind of killed yet. Yeah, exactly, Scorpion. I keep saying to people, you know, just putting your labs and projects and CTFs on your CV doesn't always necessarily make you stand out. You need to continuously make it accessible online, whether it's blogs, LinkedIn and stuff. Because all of these stuff that you do, guys, in terms of project development, they're going to work for you 24/7, because once you put it out in the world, anyone can find it. And, that's how you do it. So once you hired as SOC job, how long do they train you? Nobody really kind of trained me. I just kind of picked stuff up. Obviously, there was colleagues who I would ask questions. The main thing that you do, Redin, when you start a job is curiosity is the key, and not being afraid to ask stupid questions, because that's how you learn. But it's then learning, developing, understanding the tools that organization uses, and getting better and better with it. I did a couple of certs. I kind of did try to learn and use, especially because my first job was Microsoft House. So, Microsoft Learn is a great material to learn how to use Microsoft Security toolset, and how to configure it, how to learn. Everything's continuously changing. So you need to keep up the tempo. Yeah, exactly. What will be the disappeared. What will be the first major step to take as someone with prior knowledge in IT? Well, if you go prior knowledge in IT, then obviously, again, it depends. If you go networking knowledge, I would say straight away you can jump in CompTIA Security Plus and then build a home lab, and you're kind of halfway there. If you're not, then doing Network Plus, Security Plus, and then again building a home SOC lab, or and advancing skills, because obviously you can then pick up things much quicker because you already done IT previously. Do I need to everything when applying a cyber? What do you mean? Do you need to everything? I assume, do I need to know everything? No, red hair. You definitely don't need to know everything. I think the key asset sometimes people, or the key problem or mistake that people make, they trying to blab their way out, when they don't know anything. Sometimes not knowing and telling that you don't know anything, but telling how you're going to find out the answer is the key skill to have. A hero who does not matter says, how to protect myself from YouTube channel hackers. Couple of things. You obviously need to turn on multi-factor authentication on your YouTube channel, and make sure that your password is longer than 12 characters, including special characters, capital and lower characters, because and make sure that you're not reusing passwords. So ideally, sometimes in those cases, is just getting a password manager, I would say. Could you explain a bit about cloud security and the difference to SOC? Well, SOC is essentially SOC is the place where it's kind of a heartbeat of cyber defense. So that's where you kind of responding to cybersecurity incidents and responding to potentially attacks that your business are getting. Cloud security engineering essentially is you building security defenses. You are hardening systems that businesses build, whether it's virtual machines, whether it's applications and things like that. You're deploying security controls, you're building security automation, you are building security rules to detect and stuff like that. So you are essentially a builder who builds stuff for the SOC, for the DevSecOps, for IT, and so on and so forth, and hardening the organization defenses essentially. Qualifications you need, Redin, would be things like AZ500 from Microsoft, AWS Security Specialty. You'll need stuff like Terraform, infrastructure as code languages, and then potentially when you get advanced, maybe Python. But to start with, you need to understand how cloud works, how networking works, get cloud security specialty certifications, learn infrastructure as code languages, and then just doing labs again, but not SOC labs. This time you're doing security engineering labs, what I just mentioned in AWS. What are small businesses investing in when it comes to the cloud? Well, you mean investing in, as in general in cloud, or security tools in the cloud, Velucci? That really depends, because everyone's nowadays deploying stuff in the cloud because you are moving to operating expenses instead of capital expenses. So buying hardware. You're just renting hardware from the cloud provider, so it becomes very easily to build applications and run businesses. How do you see the market demand in multimedia forensics? Well, multimedia forensics never gonna go anywhere because Abedil is, attacks are still happening, and we need to understand how they happened. We need to gather evidence for the court and stuff like that. So that's not going anywhere. It's obviously just different context. We used to do it on hard drives. Now we do it on SSDs. We now need to adapt and learn how they do it in the cloud and stuff like that. I live in Ethiopia. More an ethical hacking than to get. Exactly, Redden. Loving stupid questions is good. That's how you learn. I think there's quite a few questions, so let me just try to catch up quickly. How is home lab? I'm not sure what does that mean, the question. I'm doing honeypot labs for school right now. That's good stuff. Yeah. I've got a YouTube video on my YouTube channel how to build a honeypot on AWS. That's quite cool stuff to play around with. Not necessarily, Redden, but you could build enough skills to start out as a sort of in a junior end of cloud or cloud security engineering, and then become a senior over time. So, it's probably getting cloud security engineering is easier than becoming a pen tester, I would say. So it's definitely a possibility to get into engineering, cloud security engineering, easier than pen testing. I'm going blind, so I need a career I can do with screen reader. No experience. Can I do A plus, Network plus, and Security plus? MGD. Yeah, of course you can. Of course you can. Especially now, most of the courses now you can do via videos. So I'm just not sure about how the exams would work. But yeah, you need to double check. I'm sure you can do that. Who to get the free op to develop the ethical hacking skill? Who to apply? I don't know what's that. Do you have to be good at math to do cybersecurity? No, Trev. You don't need to be good at math at all. So, no worries if you failed math and stuff like that, guys. You can still be a cybersecurity professional. What is good beginner Linux project? Well, just learning to navigate Kali Linux, So as I always say, when I've talked about building a SOC lab, you need Kali Linux, you need Security Onion, and you need Windows Server. So, just learning the basic commands, learning how to parse and create logs, how to navigate, how to copy files via command line, that's a good beginning stuff. And then, you can get advanced. Then, how to manage, for example, internal firewalls in Linux, because Linux comes with its own internal firewalls, unlike Windows Server. So learning how to do that, learning how to manage your internal network via Windows command line, learning how to add, remove users, how to, and stuff like that. That's a good starting point to, in Linux projects. Where do I live? I live in UK. Redden, between the two. It's between SOC analyst or security engineering. So, whichever you prefer, that's where you build the skills towards. Or you can go into networking, as Scorpion says, exactly. Especially if you want to go into pen testing, then I think it probably makes even more sense. What do you think about front-end development and working as a freelancer on Upwork or Fiverr? It's a great idea, Ahmed, but it really depends if you can get enough work on those platforms, and how do you stand out, because you get work there by ratings and stuff like that, and I haven't really done much work on there. So if you can make enough money and doing that remotely, then yeah, why not? Of course. Which niche of cyber would be best for screen reader, assuming pen test would be hard? Well, I think MGD, now you are working towards a world where AI can read anything from the screen. So as long as you can read the screen, I think you can do pretty much any role. The only thing is probably the harder part is going to be is that obviously some of the stuff requires, reading the diagrams, understanding and learning and reading the pictures. So that's the only going to be harder part. But in terms of reading, I think you can work anything. Arman, yes, of course you can do cybersecurity without programming in the beginning. Programming. You have to understand programming is we have to split it out because obviously you need to learn basics of PowerShell, Linux, but programming as such you don't necessarily need to be. I don't think you need logical. Well, you need to be obviously you need to be understand stuff, but you don't necessarily doing math in cybersecurity. Why I have Wave DX and Rode mic? Because TikTok is kind of annoying and it doesn't allow me to stream via OBS because you can't get a key out of TikTok unless I don't know, I don't remember whether you need millions of subscribers or something like that. So I normally stream all of the other platforms via OBS, and then TikTok is streaming via phone. So I use the Rode mic for the phone and Wave DX for all of the other platforms. Well, Ridden, I'm not sure one is better than the other. I think both of them are helpful. It depends, I don't think that, it's I always say to people there is no one better than the other, and every route in cybersecurity in career journey is unique to yourself. I went from engineering, I went from SOC to engineering to DevSecOps, and then I did pen testing work before. But as kind of Scorpion says, he went from networking, so obviously he's going to say that's his prerogative, or that's the best path. People who come from SOCs and go into pen testing, they say SOC is better. So it really depends. There is no best answer. Cypher says, "Is it quiet? Really? Okay, let me try." Is that better, Cypher? I'm gonna put the volume up a bit, but I don't wanna make it too loud. So we'll see if that works better. Let's see what else was there. My name is Nevis. I'm studying cyberspace security in China. Which is high in demand? I think they both are. What tips you want, Nevis, regarding cyberspace security? Hi, Chisholm. Is entry level dead? No, entry level is not dead. But I think the problem is that, and I'll probably release the video the next day. The problem is what you guys do not understand with entry level is that if you guys just blindly applying to cybersecurity roles, then yes, entry level feels like dead. And you have to understand a couple of things. And I'm going to probably post specifically a video for that because I think more people need to know. You need to understand a couple of things. First of all, I think about 50% of cybersecurity jobs never get advertised. Now, how do you get a job if it never gets advertised? You need to, and I always say to guys, you need to be able to showcase to the world how are you developing and what skills you have. Blogs, LinkedIn, and stuff like that. because jobs will come to you instead of you applying to them. Meeting people, and I always say use LinkedIn, message 10 people every single day, get to know them, reply to their comments, ask them how they got their cybersecurity job. Make friends. That's 300 people a month in the companies that you want to work with. Now, whenever the job appears in those companies, who are they going to tell? They're going to tell their friends. Now, all of a sudden, you become a referral person. And instead of you competing to 400 other people, you're competing against 2 or 3 people. So, showing to the world how you're developing yourself, getting referrals, going to conferences and meeting hiring managers, putting out stuff, showing people how you're developing. You are helping others people who are also learning and, getting into cybersecurity. So all of that gets you, potentially referrals, but also, that's how you get those jobs that are not advertised. And even the jobs that are advertised, sometimes, HR advertise the jobs just because they have to. Maybe they already have internal candidates or they have referrals. So, when it comes to CVs, you got 300 CVs of people that applied and you got maybe 3 or 2 referrals. Hiring manager obviously going to look at referrals first. So if they find a good candidate in the referrals, they're never going to go look at this 300 pile. So you have to find other ways, guys, than just blindly applying and thinking, competing against other people who have 10 certificates. There are better ways in, and there are ways around, just blindly applying to the roles. That's the way to go. I got my first job because I went on a webinar and I presented what is, MITRE ATT&ck. These are the kind of stuff you have to do to differentiate and get yourself known and seen. I don't know, Ahmed, where would, I'm not a front end developer, so I can't really advise you where to get an extra bit of money. As somebody mentioned, Fiverr and Upwork, yeah, it's potentially a way to go, but, I don't work at the front end, so I can't really tell you, what to do. Well, you have to start LES with the basic knowledge. Depends where your current knowledge is in IT and cybersecurity. You have to start somewhere. So if you don't know any operating systems and hardware, I would start watching CompTIA A+ material, then learning networking and Network Plus, then jumping into Security Plus. So you covered the theoretical and the basic knowledge of all what you need, and then building home labs and developing the hands-on skills that you need. So that's your path and that's your route to work with. And then within 9 to 12 months, you should be ready for a job. But, that's the starting point. Learning the operating systems, the hardware, how computers work, then learning the networking fundamentals and networking skills, and then learning the cybersecurity fundamentals, and then building skill sets. That would be the starting point. And then, jump on my next lives once you've done some of that, and then we can talk the next path. But yeah, you can definitely do that. Doesn't matter what you've done before. You just have to interact, Reddit. I always say make friends, go into Discord channels, go into cybersecurity conferences, meet people. Cybersecurity community is big. There's LinkedIn groups, there's Reddit chat, there's, B-sides. B-sides are great cybersecurity events who give opportunities for, people who are starting out to actually go and present. That's the way to start. Every big town in the world has a B-sides. And you can probably travel around. In UK, there's, even within traveling distance for me, there's B-sides London, there's B-sides Leeds, B-sides Bristol, B-sides Cambridge, all of these are great way to go and develop and potentially present. What matters most, certification or the skill? Of course, the skill. You can get cybersecurity job without any certificates, but I always say get at least one Security Plus. But skill is by far more important. Savinos, I say, where was it? It disappeared. I personally think Cisco certifications are not worth it anymore because Cisco is, I think they are out of date anymore. Because Cisco is specifically, it's a networking company, but they're specifically, their certs are mostly geared to Cisco hardware. Now, organizations moving into the cloud, they're not longer using Cisco hardware. Nobody's using these old school big Cisco firewalls, Cisco networking devices. So, I see loads of people still doing CCNA. Yes, it's part allows you to learn networking, but also most of the networking is done on Cisco hardware. That's no longer used. So you have to do something. I always say to people, do something more generic like CompTIA. Are write-ups of projects a good way to communicate skill? Yeah, of course it is. But it's, doing write-ups, it helps you to showcase what you've done, and as I say, write-ups, blogs, just, you have to get, I always say to people, I was very intentional. I've got 18,000 followers on LinkedIn. So when I started my career in cybersecurity, I was very intentional about building a personal brand. So I got in a habit, I pretty much post every single working day on LinkedIn. Obviously, my journey in LinkedIn changed from posting about how I was building and learning and developing my skill set to now I'm showing or sort of peeling the curtain what CISO life looks like, how stuff in cybersecurity industry is changing, what AI is doing, and things like that. But I was very intentional, and LinkedIn brings me opportunities to this day. Vendors come to me to help them build better products. I become a board advisor to many cybersecurity companies. I get various speaking opportunities. I'm speaking to a webinar soon for IC Squared, and stuff like that. Some of the posts that I made, got 300,000 views. So, that's a way to go about and build your personal brand and career. Just started cybersecurity with Coursera Foundation certificate. Any advice for me? Peace. This kind of question, I don't know what, it depends what you want to do, where you want to go in cybersecurity. These very generic questions, there is no advice in that space. Yeah, no problem, Redden. I always say to people, guys, and that's kind of, I don't want to pick on people, please, but I always say to people, you have to help people help you. You have to be intentional what you are asking, and, there is no tips or advice unless you have a goal in mind of where you want to go in cybersecurity and what you're doing. Just doing foundational certificate for what? Safa says, what do you think about hacker training platforms like Hack the Box or TryHackMe? Personally, I love TryHackMe. TryHackMe, I think, has great learning pathways into cybersecurity, and it shows you, there is even, I think, I always say, for example, people starting out, people have no clue what's the difference between SOC analyst, security engineer, GRC analyst. I think there is a pathway there to explain all of the roles and what they do, because in order to go into cybersecurity, there is no route into cybersecurity. There is a route into cybersecurity specific niche or specific job. But you need to understand what each does, how they differ, and what certification and skills you need for each in order to build those skills and work towards that. You can't just go into cybersecurity, guys. And that's, things like that can be really helpful. Yeah, no problem, Brendan, for advice. Good evening from Nigeria. Good evening, good evening. When is RAM gonna get cheaper? I wish I could tell you the answer. I wish I could have known. I would have bought more RAM. But actually, I was quite lucky. I'm building a sim racing rig, so I was quite fortunate that about 6 months ago I bought 64 gigabytes of RAM. So I'm covered for my sim rig for a little bit. Good night, Redden. Can I learn with you? Yes, you can if you join my school community. Oh, good stuff. We got people from Sierra Leone. Hi, Jay. Good to see you here. We becoming proper international now. I got an offer to work in cybersecurity in government, but I don't have experience. Where should I start? How did you get a job offer if you don't have any experience, Etan? You need to tell everyone else how you got that. Where should you start? Well, again, it's very hard to answer some of these questions because it will be dependent on what your current skill set and knowledge is. If you are a complete newbie, you have to start at the very bottom. So CompTIA A plus material, go and look at Professor Messer's YouTube videos. You know, all of that explains the operating systems, the hardware, how computers work. Then go into networking and then towards Security Plus. So then you go theoretical foundations covered. And then it's just about building the skill set through projects. Is it important to get certifications? The more the better. No. I see this all the time. People becoming badge collectors. You don't need the more certificates. You need one, maybe two. That's pretty much it. Skill set is 10 times more important. Okay, good stuff. Yeah, exactly. Hack the Box is more geared, I think, towards pen testing, FTDD. So TryHackMe is good for beginners. But I always say, you know, I like TryHackMe and I love TryHackMe. But TryHackMe, everything is a simulated environment. That's why I always say still building your home lab is much better because you learn how to troubleshoot, you learn how to build, and you learn how to fix things when they break. On TryHackMe, everything's given to you in a browser. So that's why, you know, on top of it, once you've done the basics and covered some of the routes, you would build your own home lab. Yeah, exactly. $500 for RAM stick. Yeah, it's getting crazy. And when you think about, you know, 6-7 months ago, RAM was like, you know, 64 gigs was like $150. Jay, if you want to learn about networking, you know, Network Check is your guy on YouTube, or look at Professor Messer's Network Plus course. Yeah, of course, Real Patriot. You can do cybersecurity at 32. I started at 30, and you know I've been in cybersecurity now for 10 years. But I started when I was 30, and yeah, I got my first job in 8 months. But I would question why would you start learning Python if you want to go in cybersecurity. Python is very advanced skill set, and you only need probably in senior advanced cybersecurity jobs. So I wouldn't start with Python. I'm about to finish high school and I want to study cybersecurity in college because I know general knowledge on PCs and I use Tails and Mint Linux because it's fun. But where should I start? Well, Nito, I would say, I'm very anti-university thing, so I wouldn't necessarily advise you to go college. You can via self-learning. I always say, I'll give you this example, guys, and I always do the same thing. In the university, you're going to spend 3 years and probably going to come out maybe with a couple of certs. But those university degree does not guarantee you a cybersecurity job. So you spend 3 years learning cybersecurity and get a degree with loads of probably debt that doesn't guarantee you a cybersecurity job versus what I did and build my self-learning path and got a job in 8 months. So 3 years versus 9 to 12 months on self-learning path. By spending probably 10th of the university degree, you can get a job and make money and get the money back already in 9 to 12 months. So I would say do that. Yeah, there you go. FTD got you some material. No, I wouldn't say Python is a good start, Real Patriot, as I think explained. Kind of project to do that builds progress and also grows your skill. Well, just JMark, have a look at my YouTube. There's a link in my bio. There's a video that shows how to build a SOC home lab. So I think it teaches you. There's loads of exercises, there's loads of skills, and there's loads of stuff in that video for you to try. So check this out. Not Network Check, Network Chuck, CHUCK. Yep, 8 months. I was totally locked in. At the moment I spent probably 3-4 hours every single day studying. If I need to go course or learn from home with ChatGPT or apps. As I said, Real Patriot, you need to learn the systems and A plus material, networking, and then security fundamentals, and then build projects. Thanks, Lincoln. Good stuff. You got people from Zambia as well. Nice. Exactly. The same. FTTD. I did my masters, but I was about 5 years or 6 years already in cybersecurity. But I spent 10K on masters in cybersecurity and digital forensics, and I think that degree is useless. I really regret even doing. I thought maybe it's just gonna it's you need to do it and just get it out of the way. But yeah, as you say, to build a cybersecurity program, it takes about 5 years. So by the time you do it, that program is 5 years out of date. And cybersecurity changes very rapidly and very quickly. So yeah, I always advise people against, doing the degree. Deep roadmap for cybersecurity. I already mentioned this wrong many times, but there is no deep roadmap. There is various kind of roadmaps, but there is no roadmap for cybersecurity. There is roadmap for specific roles in cybersecurity, but not cybersecurity. How good are you in build review? Not sure what you mean by that, Hard Rock. How many hours you learned a day? I did on my path into cybersecurity in those 8 months. I used to do 2 to 3 hours at least every single day. Would you think about a degree in networking to start with? Omar, I don't think you need a degree in anything to start in cybersecurity. So it's like 1 year for self-learning. Yeah, I always say to people, I got my first job in 8 months, but I say being realistic and depending how much time you spend, it's 9 to 12 months. You get a job. You can get a job in cybersecurity on self-learning. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, no problem, J Mark. Oh, from Kenya. Good stuff. Just completed apprenticeship. New contract starts Monday and looking forward to seeing the pound signs. Yeah, good stuff, Tubbs. Good to see, people succeeding, completing apprenticeships and, advancing their careers. And hopefully you get on to do some great stuff further down the line. What was it? I'm 20. I start my internship as an IT analyst next Monday. Any tips? Um, Obviously, again, it's hard to give you tips, Terrell, because I don't know what skill set you have and what you've done previously. So just Google what does IT analyst do, what tools do you normally use, how to kind of brush up on how to troubleshoot and find various, common issues that users get. I guess that's kind of the way to prepare yourself. Does SOC analyst pay? What do you mean? Pay what? Madara 12. If I want to be cybersecurity engineering, what should I start with? You should start with learning operating systems and hardware fundamentals, then networking, and then security fundamentals, Madara. I've been jobless for 2 years with a degree in cybersecurity and postgrad in cyber threat. Yeah, but Lado, as I just kind of mentioned, cybersecurity degree does not guarantee you a job, even if you got a postgrad degree. These degrees are nothing nowadays. Skills are the most important thing that you need to have in cybersecurity, and you need to follow. I always say there is a YouTube video on my channel, 5 techniques how to find job alternative routes than just blindly applying, because people are just blindly applying. It's near impossible now to find a job, because out of the 300 people who applied, someone's going to have a prettier, nicer CV with more certs or whatever that is. That's not the way nowadays to do job hunting. Afronas, what programming language did you learn first? I didn't learn any programming language in my early career. Much later I started learning Python and then Terraform, Bash, but that was much later. You don't need that in the beginning. Please discuss EV limiter tools. I have no idea what that is. To be concrete, what is my salary? I'm not going to reveal my true salary, real patriot, but let's just say, because I'm a CISO, I'm a cybersecurity leader, so I'm well into six figures. Let's just say that. Definitely Linux, Madara. Python you don't need in the beginning. Got promoted to P3 analyst after my apprenticeship, so already have good projects. Yeah, good stuff. Yes, Ademola, I had specific roadmap. I did certs. You know, I did A plus, Network plus, I did Security plus. I think I did one Azure certificate in security. I think I don't remember, was it AZ500 or something like that. And then I built my home labs. I did try hack me every day. I did hack the box every day. I built home labs and did various projects. I posted on LinkedIn every day. I wrote my blog. You know, there's loads of things were happening every single day. Good stuff, Tubbs. Well, just, P3 analyst. So I assume you work in a SOC, and does that mean, Tubbs, you want to go in more like cloud security engineering? Is that what you're pursuing? Duncan, hi. If I'm planning to go cloud security as a SOC, do you advise that as a beginner? If I'm planning to go cloud security as a SOC, I'm not sure what you mean cloud security as a SOC. SOC analyst, if you mean SOC analyst, then it doesn't matter, it's cloud or not cloud. Yeah, SOC analyst is a perfect entry level job and route to go as a beginner. Always say, it's a great way and a great role to kind of build the grounding and the knowledge of the beginning of cybersecurity career. And then, it pretty much opens up opportunities to go wherever you want in your career in cybersecurity. So yeah, it's definitely a good way to start and good way to go. I'm preparing for ISC2 exam. Any tips? Just revisit your material. Make sure you are prepared and ready. Get a good night's sleep. As long as you are prepared well enough, you should be good for it. JMark, what works better, boot camps or self-paced? Is it hard getting mentor? It depends on what kind of learner you are, JMark. Do you need hand-holding and you need much help? Then boot camps is better. But boot camps are, I always say, boot camps are expensive. And then again, they only, probably most of the time, they cover theory. So you're going to come out of boot camp with 5 certificates. And what you're going to do then? You're still not going to land the job because you'll need skills. So, and why do you need to go to boot camp when you can do the same thing while self-learning, again, for 1/5 of the cost? There are better ways around it. I always say, guys, you need to guys spend time and understanding. I know sometimes it's confusing, but you need to be direct. You need to understand what role you want to do in cybersecurity. And you need to guys, look, guys, for example, again, this ISC2 exam that Femi, whatever does. Yes, it's a great beginning route, but then again, find me a job spec that asks you for ISC2 CC cert. You won't find any. So yes, it's good to learn fundamentals, but I always say you don't need these certs. What are you going to do? I know it's a free cert, but you still need to pay, I think, $99 in order to get the cert. So why are we wasting money on cert that doesn't do much? If you look at the job specs that you want to land a job, say you want to be a SOC analyst, look at 10 job specifications on LinkedIn. What does it ask for? Most likely 9 out of 10 will going to ask for security plus. They're going to ask you for SIEM knowledge. They're going to ask you for EDR knowledge. They're going to ask you for cloud knowledge. So that's what you need to do, guys, in order to get a job. You guys sometimes, bashing around and doing stuff that doesn't really prepare you or put you or push you towards that role. And that's how you need to be realistic. You need to build skills that those who are looking to fill the roles, they're looking for them. Sorry, I just missed a few. What skills can I learn for offensive security? There's loads. I can't list. OSCP. DR certification is hard. Depends on the certifications, but yeah, some of them are really hard. Try to do CKS, you'll see how hard it is. But yeah, some of them are. What is the difference between cybersecurity engineering and cybersecurity network? With cybersecurity network, there is no thing as cybersecurity network. There is a network. Cybersecurity engineering is a practice of essentially building cybersecurity controls. Yeah, good stuff, Learner. That's a great path to learning, networking fundamentals, security plus, and then all you need to do is Learner is you need to build projects, labs, and build skills. More security automation in industry, DAST, backups, scripting, training, phishing. Okay, cool. I think you need to build a home lab, Landre. You need to build projects and build skills, because once you've done these certs, all you've done is learn theory. Now you need skills and learn how to use the tools that cybersecurity people will use. Dangling domains, but that's it on a cloud. Okay, well then, Tubbs, you need to do AZ500. You need to do AWS Security Specialty, and then you need to do some projects and labs cloud specific, and that's how you build the cloud skills. I think I said to the guys, I think I'm gonna publish some AWS videos. There's AWS project repository, I think, on AWS that actually allows you to mimic, for example, ransomware scenario. So how you would restore your networks against ransomware attacks and then rebuild it using AWS backup. How you're gonna rebuild the backups once backups becomes compromised by ransomware as well. So there's loads of stuff in there that AWS themselves built to mimic, real scenarios. What was it here? Okay. What are the tips for blocking botnets attacking APIs? Web application firewall, Keskes. Most of the web application firewalls will block the botnets. And, it really depends what kind of APIs you got. If you got, obviously internet-facing APIs, it's a bit harder. But if you got APIs, you can restrict to specific IPs. But, web application firewalls now have rules, for specific attacks detecting botnets, and also you need to put a rate limits on your APIs to make sure that when attacks happen, even if they bypass your web application firewall, you can rate limit so it doesn't overwhelm your APIs. I'm a beginner, don't really know where to start. Well, where you need to start is, Marcel, you need to figure out what you want to do in cybersecurity. Hey, do you know about the Anubis open source web AI firewall? No, Musa, I haven't heard about this. What are the entry-level cybersecurity roles? I have IT support experience, have finished Network Plus now. Well, you have stuff like, you have entry-level governance, risk, and compliance analyst. You have entry-level SOC analysts. That's kind of the main ones. You can probably get some generic sort of cybersecurity, professional cybersecurity analyst. That's entry-level. That's kind of probably pretty much it. Sometimes maybe you can find some junior engineering kind of roles, but that's kind of probably would be it, I would say. I'm a software engineer. I know nothing about cybersecurity in cloud to implement it. Okay, I don't think there was a question. Hi, Katie. I want to find my path in cybersecurity of combining AI and cybersecurity. Yeah. Well, you can use AI for anything, but AI is great about sifting through logs and automating. So, for example, in cybersecurity, AI is great at detecting anomalies. So you can go, for example, user entity behavior analytics used to be a thing. So now you can use AI to detect anomalies, build, for example, so say an organization, I have 200 employees now. AI is great at building the common behavior analysis and detecting how people normally behave. So when somebody wears away from that normal behavior, AI can detect it and highlight it, and then you can push that into some kind of for example, SIEM, and let people investigate it. That's kind of one way. AI is just great at kind of responding to first level of SOC investigation attacks. So it's great about what do I know about NA10? Yeah, NA10 is great for building automation workflows and using AI. Yes, I have used some AI NA10. I have used Meg before and stuff like that. So yeah, I've come across it. Hey, GRC leader here in third party sec, head of. Great to see others. Yeah, good to see you, Roberts. I myself a CISO for a fintech, so good to see some other people who are, in the space and been around the block. Do you know anything about harvest now, decrypt later? Yes, of course. I think that's you're talking about easy about quantum. So people are harvesting various kind of encryption scenarios, and hopefully, when quantum becomes readily available, we're going to be able to decrypt it. But in similar kind of Spain as well, hackers use the same thing. They're gathering various zero-day vulnerabilities. They're gathering people's credentials, and you never know when they're going to strike. But all of these public exposures that exposes people's passwords. Normally what people do, they use one and the same passwords against 10 sites. So if one of the sites gets breached, but chances are that the hackers can access all of the 10 sites that you have the same password in. So, that's kind of, again, in similar vein. It's just and Splunk cybersecurity. I'm also certified in TikTok wiki. Yeah, no problem. I'm glad to be your TikTok wiki. Well, as much as I can answer the questions. Could ISPs get everyone's credentials this way? No, I don't think so, because obviously stuff is encrypted. So ISP shouldn't be able to see traffic, because obviously you are encrypting it in your end, or it's encrypted on the server side. So ISP shouldn't be able to get credentials this way, unless there's obviously some kind of bypass that I don't know about. With quantum decryption, potentially, yes. But again, once quantum decryption becomes readily available, we're going to build quantum resistant encryption. So, everyone's kind of moving in the same segue. So I think, we should be cool in that space. No carbs AI will not take over cybersecurity jobs, because AI can't do stuff where it needs human intelligence. So yes, AI can automate and do sort of low-level menial tasks, but it's not going to replace people. Are there roles or rotations you believe are especially valuable for long-term leadership growth? Roles. Any role in cybersecurity is good pathway into leadership. I was very intentional, and I went my career. I worked in the SOC. I worked in security engineering and architecture. I worked in DevSecOps, because I wanted to work in every single discipline in cybersecurity before I got to the leadership. But I would say, there is no one path. There's no prescription path to go into cybersecurity leadership, because, even though if you get CSSP, that does not guarantee you a leadership position, and there is no kind of roadmap into leadership. You just have to build your own way. But I think what really helps is going to work for small organizations, for example, as a starting security engineer. Because once you are the first cybersecurity person in the company and you say are senior security engineer, chances are, which happened to me, is, once you've secured enough of the organization and company starts growing, there's a potential chance of you giving the reins and becoming a CISO and building the whole cybersecurity program, building a cybersecurity team, and then by default you become a cybersecurity leader. And post-quantum cryptography will be important as well. Yes, definitely will be. Teach you about cyber. What do you want me to teach you, Yudzi? Hello, Emmanuel. Okay, I think we are, guys, coming to the end. It was great chatting with you guys. Lovely. Of course, cybersecurity is legit in 10 years. Okay, last question, Redden, before I go. I will keep posting clips. Thanks, TZ. If I take Sec Plus now, it expires in a few months now. No, it can't expire in a few months. Whenever you take Security Plus, I think it lasts at least for 3 years, so it shouldn't expire. It can't expire unless you're doing, but even when the new certificate comes, it's not going to expire, Redden. Yeah, but even if they release the new updated version, Redden, your certificate is not going to expire. As soon as you do certificate, your certificate was going to last up to 3 years, I believe. No, it doesn't matter when it was released. It matters when you do the exam. So when you pass your exam, Redden, the certificate is going to last for 3 years, I believe. And then obviously, for example, and there's one thing as well which is cool with CompTIA. So for example, if you ever decide to do CYSA plus, whenever you do that, it's going to update the Security Plus as well. Who cares if you got the latest version? If you've done the Security Plus, nobody's going to do every 3 years the newer version just to be on the latest version. Doesn't matter. Once you passed it, you passed it. Some of my certificate, all my CompTIA certificates have expired. I don't need them. I'm in leadership. The only thing I'm keeping updated is CISSP and CISM. All my CKS, all my Azure certificates are gonna expire soon. Who cares? I've done them once. They're all on my LinkedIn. I'm not updating. I've had over 40 certificates. You know how long I would need to spend to keep updating every single cert? Yeah, exactly. So yeah, guys, have an amazing evening. I probably will have some time tomorrow as well, so I'll probably do another live tomorrow. Probably similar time, around 7 p.m. or maybe 6:30 p.m. UK time. So catch me tomorrow. I'm going to record a short video about secret jobs. Probably drop it soon, but I'll see you guys tomorrow. Have a wonderful evening. Hopefully you learned something. Guys, be intentional. Find your path into cybersecurity. Find the role that you want to land before you ask about what's the entry path in cybersecurity. Have a great evening. I'll catch you soon.